If you take Neptune, Neptune's the planet of big visions and dreams, the planet of romance and adventure. Nothing gets us more hurt than romance. More high and more low. You're the most beautiful person. I love you. How could you do this to me? How could you leave? Or I love you, but then there's someone else I love too. Like Neptune has all these dreams. It's visionary. It's great for creative artistic works, but it's not stable. So a Moon-Neptune aspect, the conjunction has the potential of being very dedicated and very soulful. The feelings are magnified, but there's a dedication or there's a mystical side to it. But usually it still means there's evasive problem. The Neptune can be deluded, evasive, confused, fanatical, messianic, haunted, guilt-ridden. It can be the country and western bar. It can be the fanatic in the temple of self-righteousness. It can be guilt. So when Neptune makes a stressful aspect to the moon, they're going to feel guilty or sorry, or they're going to exaggerate the past and think they can't do, oh, that shouldn't have happened, oh, poor so-and-so, oh, this should, so they're going to have this sympathy link that's going to have a sorrow or a sadness to it, an expectation to it, a letdown from it. So if it's a conjunction where it's acted, a person can still have this sorrow, but it can come out as like, I need to live to do something, I need to save kids, or I need to be a missionary, or a need to be dedicated. It can come out as a social conscious, a need to live in a social conscious way. But often the psychic energy is your moon, and Neptune magnifies it, but it magnifies the good and the bad. So you pick up everything. So some of the most beta psychics, one, they can be fat. Two, they can pick up the bad things. Three, a lot of them can be alcoholic or whatever, and then they pick up things from another thing. So there's a lot of bad behavior or bad habits, possibly allergies, possibly addictions, possibly excessive indulgences. Neptune, like Jupiter, exaggerates and magnifies things beyond limits. So when you have the moon Neptune, any of the moon to any of the other planets, first thing you look at how abusive or how handicapped a domestic situation is, how you were born, linked to mom and growing up to a family. Usually there's some big complex or problem there. And it spins off to change, to morph into different ideas and different manners as you get older. So the Neptune to the moon, it's Venus and Neptune and the moon, if they pile up, it's a classic alcoholic complex, but not everybody that has it an alcoholic, but they will have really heightened emotional, we'll get to Venus. To the moon, it's just whose dependencies, codependencies. I'm living for you, I'm living like this, we have to do this, we need to have this, and it gets exaggerated, we should have this, we gotta have this, or no, people are starving, we gotta help them, or I'm starving, help me. There's, depending what sign the moon's in, which is going to pick it up, that attitude very strongly, then the Neptune will kick in and you'll see it's spacey, it's not exactly clear. It could be really sloppy habits, it could be really wasted lethargy, or it could be fanatical projections of feelings. But there tends to be extreme exaggerations, dependencies, guilts and sorrows and expectations. So the counter to this, when you're having someone that has, when you have someone that has a Uranus moon, you're trying to calm them down and not get too risky, but not be too isolated from you. You're trying to get them over the anxiety. When someone has a Neptune to the moon, you're trying to get them into a simple, self-reliant health pattern. Someone could have the moon Neptune and just be living with one person after another, so that person is always taking care of them. Or a mother can, well, I'll keep having a baby, that way I don't have to go to work, or I don't have to get out of this pattern. I can just stay in the pocket. So it's hard to say it's right or wrong, but there are issues of morality and confusion and distortion that can come in. But basically, questionable, wherever Neptune is, something's not as it seems. It's questionable, it's mystical, it's fuzzy, it's half rapture, half guilt and sorrow. You know, half visionary, half blaming and preaching. So when it hits your moon, you have these complicated guilt and sorrow things. Habits were not the way they were. Your life, some scandals, some weird things were happening in the family when you grew up. It can be a sick parent, a sick brother, or a sick kid. It could be an alcoholic parent, classic. It could be, but it can go into all kinds of, if it doesn't, normally it doesn't go to the great extremes, but when you get these weird extremes where something's really bizarre, it can happen under these outer planet aspects. So they pile up. We're just looking at the moon now. We still got all the other planets to look at, but the moon, I'm just doing this so thoroughly because it's so powerful to see. It opens up so many doorways. It's like you're looking from the moon and you're looking up through the whole chakra system and you're seeing all the nervous systems, and you're just, many people experience visions of God looking at all these different aspects and seeing things like this and how they're all connected. And everything's crazy if you look close enough, but everything's kind of normal. Everybody has the mix of everything. We all have all of these qualities. We all have a Neptune moon aspect. And at times in our life, our lifestyle, our living, our habits are going to go out there. And sometimes they go and they can't come back. So people can be alcoholic without this aspect. People can have this aspect and not be alcoholic. But the tendency for dependencies, eating dependencies, domestic dependencies, dependencies for security, someone can have 50 cats. Like it's or a pet rat or whatever. Like it can be allergies. Something's not as it seems around the psyche, around the basic sense of security, basic habits. So it's easy to get into bad habits with this, or one-sided habits. So someone could be the victim, someone could be the perpetrator of the projection and be projecting so much that they're forcing everything to fail and still causes the guilt. Someone could be guilty and someone could be blaming the other person that gets close to them. So it's complicated. This is really difficult. Like, it can be very psychic, but even with psychic, if you don't live simply, you'll pick up the bad energy and you're around bad people. And it could be poor sympathy. If you have poor sympathies or distorted sympathies, what kind of friends and people are you going to attract in your life? Where are you going to fit in? Well, okay, country and western song. If we take Pluto, the most outer planet, planet of truth and consequences, the planet of the auditor general of what's really true, brutally so. Pluto is harsh. There's always a harshness, a harsh truth with Pluto. It's the hardest aspect to have this harsh Pluto directly affecting the sympathetic moon. So if you have a moon Pluto, you control your feelings. You're afraid of feeling of sympathies. You're afraid of your sensitivities and your basic needs. So you tend to make extreme decisions. It has to be like this. I have to control it like this. I have to control it like that. But when you're with someone close, you can be doing everything for the person, but it would be very difficult for a moon Pluto to surrender and trust someone else with their feelings to guide them, or to just surrender into feelings. It's over-controlled. Controls feelings, controls home, controls moods, controls reflex. They're going to have control over their memories. I'm only remembering the things I want to remember. I blocked out other things. So all of these Pluto, Uranus, Neptune are extreme functions, are extreme energies. They're there. Just as an adult, if you're watching the news too much, you're looking at all the fear and everything in the world, you've been Plutoed out. You've got all the Pluto fear. If you're looking at all the sorrow and the corruption, you've been Neptune out. If you're looking at all the sudden disruptions and shocks, you're being Uranus out. So the news really plows up normal circumstances and magnifies them until they're shocking, deceiving, confusing, or fearful. And we buy into it and we can live in those things, but we're not living a very good life if we give those are outside planets. We should be in our sun, in our heart, in our warmth, in our radiance. Confidence should determine that we get a certain security for ourselves too. So that security, when you think home, mom, whatever, it's in this moment, right now. How secure do you feel? How many memories have been dealt with? How many memories are still pulling you? How many memories are interfering with your ability to be peacefully here right now? Whoa. You think about that and say, how come? Then you look at your chart and you see the aspects to your moon. Then you're working the different layers of the moon. So you got the moon through the different layers of the signs, different layers of the houses, and then you're seeing how much stress comes into it. And by the time you put these three things all together, you get into the poetry and the visualization and the experiential insights of astrology. You still have to take the theory, work it through the poem, work through the written music, hear the song, and observe it. Then you're into the counselor relationship, or the practical relations about living your chart. Where are we? Okay, so we just did the moon, but that's okay. I took a lot of extra time on it. We still got to go through the rest of the planets next week. and I won't be spending as much time on it, but I wanted to do one really thoroughly. So you can see by the time we've gone through this all, we've looked at it from different sides, from each different level of consciousness and how it relates to the others. And you've expanded your understanding of each person's matrix. Now, when you're born, the planets are like alarms on a clock. They're set, your matrix is kind of set. But the world doesn't, and your potentials are all set at that moment of birth. 100% potential the moment you take your first breath. But then it changes. The world keeps moving. The planets keep moving beyond it. And every day we get new experiences, new things. Our matrix is challenged. We diminish our potentials. We get caught in certain patterns. We start growing and living and crystallizing into this life and navigating through it. And we're getting, well, I have times of watching, and those timings of planets moving around like hands of a clock will hit these different nerves of our psyche at different times. And they'll come up. So even if you know someone has a tendency to be over anxious around and over insecure around their feelings, they're going to have trouble accepting jokes. Every joke or any sudden little impulse is going to be a threat or a shock. Of course, it's fun to tease them then, because you know they've got a reaction they're going to get. So there's many ways to play. You don't want to just get the mental concept and have it extreme. You want to look at these things, see the concepts between us, relate the associations of the planets, which are energies, not words. But we're using words, keywords to work with it, and get back to the energy and let the energy settle with you. This is fruitful area for contemplation, meditation, just to look at the different sides of it, keep going back and forth, and it settles with you. And when you're caring for a person that's got a specific puzzle, wow, it opens doorways. This is really, I don't call it psychological therapy because psychological therapy is just behavioral. Well, we're using behavioral things, but there's also a spiritual side inside of it. But we're really looking at the psyche of a person and its nature. So, okay, I'm going to leave this here. We're going to start next week. We'll do Mercury, Venus. We'll work up through the others, and yeah. So we're coming into the kingdom of aspects. So everyone is a different picture. But even we're looking at what's stressful. But even when it's not stressful, we still have a relationship between these two things, and that stress can still come in those areas, but they're not going to come as consistently or as dramatically as if you have the aspect. Okay, that's it for now. I'll see you next week, and we'll pick up the rest of the aspects. Okay, thanks. Good night.